Hello everyone, welcome back to Octave11. My name's Jojo and today we welcome back Marg Murphy, our esteemed astrologer. And she's talking today about eclipses and eclipse season that we're embarking upon right now and the effects that we might, how it might affect us collectively and how we might feel it individually coming up for each of us. Take it away, Marg. Welcome back. How are you?
Thanks, Jojo. It's intense and it's dark moon today. So, we talked about Lilith last time. Well, the dark moon time is Lilith's time. So I just thought I'd put that in, carrying on from last time. It's dark moon. Okay, so tomorrow's the new moon, and it's the new moon in Scorpio at about 12 degrees. And the reason I'm talking about the new moon first is because we're in the eclipse season now, and eclipses always happen on new moons or full moons. That's how it works, yeah? There's no eclipse tomorrow, but it's the new moon before the full moon eclipse on the 19th of December. So it's leading us into the eclipse season. And yes, I just thought because it's eclipse season, we could have a little chat about eclipses and what they might mean and, what the sky story is. So eclipses, yeah, they happen. There's 2 eclipse seasons a year, 6 months apart, and there's always 2, a new moon and a full moon. And it might work the way it is this year with the full moon first, then the new moon. And sometimes there can be up to 7 eclipses in 1 year. That's incredibly rare. 4 is common, 4 is the usual, and that's what we've got this year. So we had eclipses back in May and early June, and now we've got them in late November and early December. That's the 6-month cycle. Yeah.
Can you maybe just want to explain exactly what an eclipse is, Marg, for people who might not be aware of what the actual energies can, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we have solar eclipses and lunar eclipses. Yeah. So a new moon is when the moon has travelled around the sky, around the earth, and it comes into the same position from our perspective as the sun. So the new moon is the day that the sun and the moon come together. We don't actually see the moon on the new moon because they're together, and so the sun's light blocks it out. We start to see the moon, 2-3 days later as that little slither of a crescent. So that's every month the new moon. And then every month the full moon, which is when the moon has got to the point exactly opposite where the sun is in the sky. And we get the beautiful big moon rising while the sun is setting. So this happens every month, as we know, and every month through the year, those new moons and full moons are happening sequentially in the signs of the zodiac. Okay, so an eclipse season happens when the new moon and the full moon are taking place within a certain number of degrees of the nodes. So we kind of touched a little bit maybe on the nodes of the moon last week because they're mathematical points like Lilith is, and they're the point where the moon crosses the ecliptic. The ecliptic is the path that the sun travels across our sky. Nodes, I think for a full moon, the nodes have to be within 13 degrees of where the sun and moon are. And for a new moon, they have to be within 18 degrees. So that's the mathematical calculation that lets you work out that there is going to be an eclipse. Eclipses have been obviously seen in the sky forever, and the Babylonians actually worked out the cycles of the eclipses and how to calculate eclipses. And that was in about 800 BC. So in about 800 BC, they were able to predict the eclipse that's coming up on the 19th of November 2021. So it's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So
Maths is incredible, the language of the universe.
Yeah, exactly. So language of the universe, eclipse seasons every 6 months, and connected closely to the nodes. So the nodes at the moment are in Gemini and Sag, and we did mention this last week, and they move in a backward motion. So soon they'll be moving into Scorpio, Taurus. So we're in Scorpio time now, and the new moon, and the new moon tomorrow is in Scorpio. So the eclipse that's coming up on the 19th, the full moon eclipse, the sun will still be in Scorpio and the moon will be in Taurus. So it always works like that, the exact opposite sign. So we're coming up for a lunar eclipse. So if it's a full moon, it's a lunar eclipse. 2 weeks later, it'll be a solar eclipse when it's the new moon in Sagittarius. Yeah. So we had a full moon eclipse in May in Taurus. The sun was in Taurus, the moon was in Scorpio, and now we're getting the reverse of that with the sun in Scorpio and the moon in Taurus, and pretty close to the same degree as well, which is about 26. Have I got it here on my chart? Sorry. The full moon eclipse coming up is 27, and I think the one in May was 26. So we've all got a Scorpio Taurus in axis in our charts, and we're now going to be activating, the eclipses activate that part of our chart. So they're activating something for the collective, for the planet, for all of us. But then if we bring it down to a more personal level, it's like, where is this happening in your chart? Because what happens is the nodes take about 18 months to travel through a sign. And so for about 18 months, the eclipses are in that polarity. So we've had Gemini Sag eclipses for the last 18 months. And we're moving now. We're going to have the last the last Sag eclipse is going to be in December. But we're getting this crossover where we've got a full moon in Scorpio and then a new moon in Sag. So we're leading the way, we're crossing over now and really moving into the Scorpio Taurus axis. And that's where the nodes are moving to as well.
So what can you talk a little bit about the energies of that axis, Marg? Scorpio Taurus energies, and what that sort of how we'll see that present?
Yeah. Okay. So when it's a lunar eclipse, which is what we're coming up for, meaning that the moon's in Taurus and the sun's in Scorpio, and the shadow of the earth will be blocking out the moon. So that's how a lunar eclipse works. So it's the Taurian moon that's being eclipsed. And when it's a lunar eclipse, it's a much more internal energy, because it's the lunar realm that we're delving into. And that's, nighttime energy, feminine energy, internal emotional landscape. So with the lunar eclipse, we need to really tune in quietly. Yeah, tune in very quietly to the inner workings of you. What's happening? How are you feeling? What's the emotional landscape feeling like? And if you know your chart, you look at where Taurus is in your chart. Which house is Taurus for you? Taurus, Scorpio, they'll be directly opposite each other. So it's going to be internal workings, and because it's internal feeling, internal awakenings, it can feel quite chaotic around eclipse time, and we're in it already. So it is chaotic. I guess you could see that as, like in the external world, as the freedom that we've, apparently experiencing at the moment. There's been a real shift in the last few days.
Yeah, so it's like
collectively.
Yeah, the repressed energies are starting to bubble up with the eclipse season.
Exactly. So with a lunar eclipse, there's things that rise from within. And if I could just backtrack a little bit to the new moon tomorrow. The new moon tomorrow's interesting one. It's in Scorpio, and Lilith in the sky is still in Gemini. We talked last week about Lilith going Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, etc. So she's going to be in Gemini, but the next day, on Saturday, Lilith will move into Taurus, and over that day she will directly oppose the moon at the degree that the eclipse will be on in a couple of weeks. Okay, so
wow. So is that really unsettling for people's home resources, like all that Taurian stuff, like that, all that's going to be churned up?
Yeah, and I think Lilith is paving the way. We talked last time about Lilith moving backwards and forwards. So Lilith is paving the way. So really, in order to tune into the eclipse, start tuning in now, tomorrow, with the new moon, and Saturday when the moon and Lilith really, speak closely together. And so I feel like it depends very much on where Taurus is in your own chart, and Scorpio, but it's Taurian. So again, it's like, we can start to have confusing feelings or worries about Taurian parts of our life. Now, I can only talk about Taurus, can't go into 12 different houses, but Taurus rules the earth. Okay, Taurus is an earth sign, and it's very much about what we value and how much time we spend in the garden. And it's because it's an earth sign, of course, it's connected to all the practicalities of the mundane world, and that means money. Yeah, so you just mentioned can be some worries about money. It can be about restriction because it's Taurus. Are we bumping up against barriers?
Which is interesting reflection on lots of people being forced to leave their jobs at the moment because they won't, do what they're supposed to do. And I just heard this morning too that Centrelink will be following suit. So it's a big thing for everybody at the moment, isn't it, to maintain an income and, their place in the world, but it's being squeezed out. The eclipses are just going to make it more intense, aren't they?
Wow, yeah, really. I didn't know about the Centrelink thing, but then that would be the opposite end of it, the Scorpio, because that's a share, Centrelink and welfare come through the government, come through the taxes that we pay.
Social security.
So, yeah, or social insecurity. So, it's feeling quite precarious, isn't it? At the moment, but I think for the full moon, we still have to be able to step back and know that within the astrological way of knowing that everything is in a cycle, and we might be immersed in we are immersed, whatever our position is, we're immersed in this situation that we find ourselves in, Victoria particularly at the moment, and it feels really intense, and perhaps it feels unjust and unfair and divisive. But this is a moment in time, and astrology really reminds us of that, of soaring up above and getting an eagle eye view of what's happening. And we get that through looking at the cycles. So all eclipses, or everything that happens astrologically is happening in a cyclic way. And eclipses are no different. So they follow cycles as well. And so there's 2 cycles for eclipses, Metonic and Saros. We don't have to get into all the technical, stuff in this little moment, but we can look back 18 and 19 years ago. And depending on how old you are, you can keep doing that back to the time of your birth. So 18 years ago was 2003. And at 2003, we were in the same family of eclipses. But in 2002, so 19 years ago, the eclipse took place on the exact same degree as the eclipses of this year. So there's echoes, and it's for individuals really to kind of sit for a moment, perhaps on the new moon tomorrow, which is a day where we set intentions. Sit for a moment and think back to what was happening, what was unfolding for you from November of 2002 right through to beyond November of 2003. So look about 18 months, what was unfolding for you back then? And are there traces of that story that need to be addressed now? And if not, then it's a whole new story that's being laid down for you. But collectively, it's not a new story. Collectively, this family of eclipses has been running since the 1700s and goes through to, eclipses have a long cycle. They start at one pole and they wind their way around the planet till they end at the other pole. So this eclipse series doesn't end until 3000 and something. So we've only got the lens of today, but we need to try and broaden our lens and understand that we collectively can shift the story. So Scorpio Taurus axis is also about magic and alchemy. And I really feel that with particularly with Taurus, that Taurus is the alchemist and the magician, and Scorpio is another level of that.
Transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. So like Jojo, it's hard. It's hard because of what's going on out there, but we have to maintain an equilibrium within and really look at our emotional being and how we're responding to what's happening and how we're feeling within this chaos, and how we can find the center point where we can be calm and not getting tossed around too much like we're in a washing machine, not tossed around too much with the chaos that's out there. This will unfold for you, for all of us, depending on where Scorpio Taurus is in our charts, and we'll be watching it very closely because it will be the next 18 months, 12 months at least, because we did start with Scorpio Taurus in May 6 months ago. So it's a theme where we all have to be looking at the earth, how we deal with the earth, how we nurture the earth, how we grow our gardens, and that's metaphorical as well as physical gardens. Going back to what we talked about before, we have to spend time in nature. We have to begin to honour the earth, timely with the Glasgow conference on now. But Scorpio is our shared resources. So even though it's a water sign, it's our shared resources, which are our taxes and what they're being spent on, and how much influence we might have over that. It's a time to take action.
I find it interesting that all those big kahunas get on aeroplanes and go and meet up in another country and use all the fossil fuels to tell us what we should and shouldn't be doing. The irony is,
obvious. The irony is obvious. Yeah.
Or the hypocrisy.
People can feel that they have really peak experiences during eclipse times. Maybe not necessarily on the day. though it's interesting, you know, like in the consulting room, when you ask people what happened on that day, often there is a peak story, but definitely in the immediate times around. And it can be, particularly with a lunar eclipse, it can expose hidden stories. So, you know, that can be in the collective, but it can also be within ourselves, our own internal story. What can we look at in terms of our shadow or in terms of ourselves and see differently? And what messages are we getting? What is being revealed? Something that's been hidden will be revealed. Woo-hoo. Particularly with Scorpio Taurus axis, because Scorpio loves, you know, secrets. Scorpio can be really secretive, yeah. And so with that energy of chaos, what's going to be thrown up for us? So the 19th of November is the full moon following tomorrow's new moon. So the 19th of November is the eclipse date that we're looking at, but we start setting the vibe for that and the atmosphere for that now, really, in this dark moon. When we get to, with the new moon, we get Lilith in Gemini, and then the next day we get Lilith opposite the moon. And then for the eclipse, Lilith is in Gemini, and she's at 12 degrees Gemini for our full moon eclipse. And it's interesting because there's a few 12s in that chart. Venus is at 12 Capricorn. Uranus is at 12 Taurus, where the eclipse is happening. And Mars is at 13 Scorpio, you know, pretty close to 12, obviously. And the reason why I'm talking about those particular planets is because Scorpio and Taurus are ruled by Mars and Venus. So it's good to have a look at what Mars and Venus are doing. Mars is in Scorpio. Mars is in Scorpio now, and of course we'll still be in Scorpio then. So people can get pretty feisty at the moment.
Mercury goes into Scorpio too shortly.
Yeah. On the eclipse, Mercury will be at 21 degrees of Scorpio.
Oh, it's going to be feisty.
Yeah, so in Scorpio, there'll be Mars, Sun, and Mercury. So, yeah, feisty, like passion gets aroused. You know,
being communicated also.
Yeah.
Not just sitting on it.
And it's a time to really watch the way we interact, because we're having our own chaotic eclipse moment, and so's everyone else that we meet, but in playing out in different ways for different people. So we have to be very mindful that we're really acting with integrity and trying to maintain the calm. If anger is arising, direct it in a way that it can be really productive. I'm spending a lot of time thinking about Mercury and Mars right now, writing angry emails to politicians at the moment. So, you know, that's just one of my little things. But the opposite end of it, Taurus, what's in Taurus at that time? Of course, it's the moon, because it's the lunar eclipse, but the other the other planet that's in Taurus is Uranus. And we've talked about that, you know, Uranus in an earth sign, again, exposing all this, exposing the corruption in the money systems. And because Venus is part of this story, she's getting us to look really closely at the systems that we collectively have created, and to be mindful about what's happening and what is the truth and what is being exposed. There will be more revealed in this Scorpio Taurus time. Yeah, and it's not easy, but Scorpio's about resilience and tenacity, and Taurus is about persistence. So it's about really searching within, seeing what arises and what needs to be held with, you know, with tenacity, what needs to be shared with generosity. Taurus is so generous, and Scorpio is about what is a shared resource. So how do we move through these troubled times? Pay attention to the sky stories and see how they are echoed by the earth stories, by the things that are happening around us, and start wising up. The next eclipse will be a new moon eclipse in Sagittarius, and that's about philosophies and belief systems, and and it's a new moon, so it's a new journey there.
Some expansion and abundance. And so Marg, if people are wanting to look at their charts, they can obviously just go online and look up any free.
There's loads of free places. I'm not going to put plugs out there for any particular organisation or astrologer. There's if you just Google, there's lots of places that you can go to find your own chart, and you're looking for the Scorpio Taurus signs, and they'll be directly opposite each other. And then you'll notice what house they're in, and that's where the energy plays out for you. Houses represent areas of our life, if you like. So, it could be, home and work, or self and relationship. They're all, their houses are axes. Just one more thing, because we talked a lot about Lilith last week. And a lunar eclipse, it's, if we think of Luna, Luna, as the goddess, as the big feminine energy up there, and the sun, of course, is a masculine energy, it's the goddess that's darkening. So the goddess is darkening and going within to really look at what the emotional terrain is. And if we can consciously do that ourselves, we might tune in and get some really interesting messages.
Well, it's receptive. It's very receptive energy. So, looking for those answers within, or those messages, or, wisdom from our ancestors or from the earth itself to practice going within to access that is very, very powerful in itself, isn't it?
Yeah. And lunar eclipses, this one happens at about 8:30 at night, so I'm not sure. It's still kind of light then, really, isn't it? So I'm not sure if we'll see it, but have a look to the east, because this moon will be rising in the evening of the 19th, and see if it's visible. But it's happening. It's definitely, it's happening anyway. I'm just not sure because of daylight savings.
So what are the dates of the eclipses coming up, Marg, over the next little while? So
well,
maybe make a note and then pay attention so they can actually put it into some action.
Yeah, so the 19th of November is the full moon eclipse, and then the new moon will be 2 weeks later. Haven't got the date, but we can talk before then anyway. Maybe we can talk about the new moon eclipse that's coming and reflect on the full moon that will have happened by then.
Sure.
Yeah, but this one's very much about exploring your own internal landscape. And because it's a full moon, it's a time, of giving thanks. There's always something that we can feel a sense of gratitude for and, be grateful for, regardless of how dark times might seem. Scorpio can seem quite dark. But to look within and feel grateful and be observant. Watch how what happens within is echoed outside of ourselves.
It's going to be an interesting month.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be a really interesting month.
Yeah.
And it's going to be going on for all of 2022, the Scorpio Taurus axis of eclipses. So the eclipses will be in, roughly around May and November next year. I haven't looked at the dates too closely yet, but that's where we've got to focus on how we are connected to nature and how we share what we have. And knowing that Scorpio Taurus is the alchemist and the magician. So we can change things. We can make magic if we are working together with nature or with other people with integrity. Lilith and Scorpio and Taurus very much about integrity and knowing that things take time.
And Taurus also very much about the senses and understanding if you're, in tune with your own senses and in tune with the elements, then your intention can open up so much magical opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah, really good point, Jojo. Yeah, so it's about that dattery again, isn't it? Making sure that we're tuning in with all of our being, not just our eyes or our ears.
Or our
all
head.
of it. On the eclipse, my plan is to hop into my newly painted outdoor gold bath under the rose arbor.
Beautiful.
And have a bubble bath and smell the roses and look up at the sky and contemplate what is.
Well, we are the co-creators, so the more imaginative and blissful and joyful we can drop into, then that's the ripples out rather than fear and suppression and unsure. Have your bath, soak in it, really feel it, know it, believe it, and then all that goes out. It's good on you, Marg.
It's beautiful, yeah. And then, of course, after the full moon, then it's the waning moon. So we can slow down a little bit for those 2 weeks and process everything that's come up for us and just, be observant and witness and prepare for the new moon when we can set new intentions, and that will be an incredibly powerful new moon because it will be an eclipse. Yeah. So good luck with the new moon tomorrow and feeling into what it is that we want to make magic with. Yeah.
What we want to manifest, what we want to
manifest. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Excellent.
All right,
Marg, thanks for that. There's a lot of info, a bit of a download, but I'll go and have a look at my aspects and have a really sit in that and plan some days, I think, some exercises and ritual.
Yeah, thanks, Jojo.
Good on you, Marg. Much appreciated. Thank you so much.
Bye.
See you again soon. See you, Marg. Have a beautiful day.
Thanks. Bye.